Hi, this is Katie at Quilt Beginnings in Dublin, Ohio, and today I'm going to walk you through BERNINA DesignerPlus V9 software. So very exciting. When you open up your software, you are going to start out in this home screen. The home screen is just sort of where you navigate to where you want to go next. So from your home screen, you can go to your embroidery canvas, which is where all of your designing is going to happen. You can go into Embroidery Library, which is BERNINA's design management system, where you can really see all of your different embroidery designs that you have on your computer. You can create a new design. You can open a design that you've already worked on or that you already own. And all of your recent designs are going to show up right in this middle section. So you can see everything that you've worked on previously and just open right up where you left off. There are a lot of other handy features about the home screen. If your computer is connected to the internet, which it will need to be in order to operate your V9 software, you can access BERNINA webinars where they have lots and lots of good recorded content. You can go directly to embroideryonline.com, the embroidery designs shop, and shop OESD designs, get lots of new designs, anything you'd like to do there. You can also, as I'm scrolling down, get into skill builder lessons. There are a lot of built-in lessons that come with the V9 software, so you can sort of build your skills one step at a time. And then there's also a link to the BERNINA blog, where there's, again, lots of different tips, tricks, and fun projects. They're always updating new things on the blog. One other thing to point out on your home screen is you do have access to built-in tutorials. So as I click on the tutorials button on the left-hand side, I get access to all the different BERNINA tutorials. These are not just for the software. This is kind of all the different BERNINA tutorials they have out on YouTube. If you hover over any of them, it's going to tell you in more detail what that tutorial is about. But if you click up on featured tutorials, it's going to bring you to the software tutorials. And so if you just have one specific thing you're looking to do, these are really, they're nice. They're 1 to 2 minute videos, just kind of showing you a kind of brief overview of a different technique. You can also search. So if, again, there's a specific topic you're looking for, you can type that right into your search bar up at the top here, and it will bring up whatever you'd like to learn about. So if we type in applique and hit enter, we can see all the different tutorials that the software has built in on different applique techniques and how to do applique in your software. So let's go ahead and go into our embroidery canvas. So I'm going to click on embroidery canvas in the top left side. And this is going to bring me into my main design screen. This is where we're going to do most of our work in the software. So just a little overview of the screen to get oriented, because there are a lot of different icons and a lot of different things we can do in here. First, you're going to see up in the top, we have just our title, where it's going to tell us what level of software we have. So this is the Designer Plus level. You could also have Creator level. It's going to look very similar, but not have quite as many features. It's also going to tell you the name of the design. So if you opened a design, right now mine just says Design 1 because it opened up a new blank design for me. But if you opened a design, it would tell you the name of your design there. In the upper right-hand side, you can minimize your whole screen. You can make it a little bit smaller so it's not full screen, or you can close the program entirely. Next, as we work our way down, we have our menu options. Now, these menu options, a lot of them are going to have shortcuts elsewhere in the software. There's a couple of times that I do go up into the menus, but for the most part, all of the fun functions are going to be more in our toolbars and our toolboxes. So next, as we go down, we have these 2 rows up at the top are going to be our toolbars. So there's lots and lots of different icons up there. And our toolbars are sort of organized into different sections. So these first 4 icons in the top left, we've got our home screen. We have our artwork canvas, where we can go into our artwork side of things and edit artwork, things like that. We have our embroidery canvas, which is highlighted blue currently because that's where we are. We also have our embroidery library. What's really nice with this software is it does come with the embroidery library function, which again is a design management system. I'll show you that in a minute. you can kind of see very quickly and easily what all of your embroidery designs are and stay really organized that way. What's also nice with this software is if you just hover your mouse, so if I just bring my mouse pointer over an icon, I don't know what it does, it's going to open up and tell me exactly what that icon does. So this would be, this icon here would be to open a new blank design. It does give me a keyboard shortcut. If I like to use keyboard shortcuts, I can always hit Control N. It's going to give me a little more detail. It says, oh, this is to create a new blank design. And if I have questions about it, I can always just touch the F1 key on my keyboard, and it will take me to the reference manual page on that topic. So there's a lot of built-in help right in the software, which again is very handy as I'm learning. There is also a way to toggle on tool names. So I will show you that in a second. I'm going to just continue to do an overview, and then I'll show you how to set up so you get your tool names where they're always visible, because that can help navigate. All right, so we talked about sort of our general menu here. Next, we've got all of our different toolbars up along the top here. This is, again, sort of our general toolbar. It's got the basic, save, how to send your design to your machine. It's got cut, copy, paste, your undo and your redo buttons. I love those. You've got your insert embroidery. So we'll talk a little bit about inserting an embroidery design versus opening an embroidery design. And then also inserting artwork. So if we're using a software, sometimes it's very helpful to have artwork as a backdrop that we can design from. We also have our object properties and our effects. These are both very fun menus. So if I click into object properties, for example, this is where I'm going to be adjusting all of my different stitches. There's many different tabs, but as we go through each of the modules of the software, we'll be using object properties to adjust and get really specific results that we want from our software. I'm going to X out of that window of object properties. Next, in our toolbars, we've also got a measurement system. So right now I'm set in US, which is going to be inches. If I click on the drop down, I can switch it over to metric if I want to look in millimeters. But what's nice with this V9 software as well is, even though my default right now is set to inches, if I am ever within object properties, let's say, and want to put in something in millimeters, I can just click into whatever I'm editing. I can type 5 mm, and it's going to put that into millimeters. Now, this is for a step stitch, so you might not want to put 5 millimeters for a step stitch there, but it's nice. You can always put 5 mm, and that will register as millimeters, or let's say 0.25 in, and hit enter or tab, and it's going to register. It's going to do the conversions for you. So again, I'm going to X out of here, but you can always, even though you're in a set default, and I like to keep it in US in inches, if there's ever a time that I need to type in millimeters, I just put mm after whatever I'm typing, and it's going to do that conversion for me. Next, we have our dockers. Now, these dockers are have different functions, and whenever I open them, they are going to actually live over on the right-hand side of my screen where this color film is showing. And so color film is one of my dockers here. If I click on that, it opens up that docker. And again, it's called a docker because it just kind of docks over here on this side of the screen. So right now my thumbtack is open. It's kind of not going to stay there. So if I move my mouse away, that docker will close up when I'm not using it. And so you can open these dockers and have them over on the side of your screen, but we'll get into each of those and what they do a little bit later. Color film, I'll tell you, is a very handy one. It kind of helps navigate through thread color by thread color. So that is a handy one to kind of keep up on the side of the screen where it's easily accessible. Okay. Next, we have our zoom options. Now, our zoom options are very handy for navigating around the screen. You can zoom to a 1-to-1 ratio, which is going to display the design at actual size. Zoom to fit. Now, if I had a design up on the screen, zooming to fit would bring that design to fill the entire screen. very handy keyboard shortcut is the number 0 for zoom to fit. So when we get a design up on the screen, we'll look at using that. We also have a drop down where we can zoom to hoop. So if I click on zoom to hoop, now I have zoomed to my full hoop I have up on the screen, or just different percents. So if I want to zoom to 100%, this is again going to be kind of actual size of whatever is up on my screen. I can pan as well. So if I want to drag to pan across the design, I can just grab, I'm clicking my left mouse click and dragging this around the screen so I can kind of get exactly where I want to go. And when I let go, my little hand turns into an open hand and I'm no longer panning. Next, we have our travel toolbar. So this is going to be different options for traveling through the design. This is really handy, especially before you send a design to the machine, to travel through the design sort of object by object to see what order things are going to stitch out in, to make sure that things are stitching out in a good order and that you sort of tested it before sending it to the machine for stitch out. Moving down to the second row, on the left-hand side, we have our transform toolbar. And so this whole toolbar, right now it's grayed out. So anytime that your icons are grayed out, it's because you can't do anything with them yet, right? I don't have a design on my screen. There's nothing for me to transform. So if it's grayed out, I just can't use it yet. Anytime that I'm able to use it, it will be in color like these other icons up here. So I've got my select. This is going to be my kind of basic function. When I have my regular mouse cursor, I usually want it to be selecting objects. I can also select an entire polygon, select a whole shape, or I can reshape an object. That's going to come in handy when we've got designs up on the screen that we're trying to reshape, and just kind of making sure we know, okay, do we have select on or do we have reshape on? I'll give you a sneak peek. Escape is a very handy tool for that. So we will get into that in a moment. All my different transform functions, so I can resize, I can mirror it left and right, I can mirror it up and down, rotate left and right, rotate a specific number of degrees, I can skew, and I can adjust the absolute position in the hoop and adjust the absolute size or the ratio of sizes. We can also rotate our hoop left and right, any number of degrees, and those are my transform options in my transform toolbar. Next, and our last toolbar is going to be our view toolbar. So all these different options here, you can see multiple options are blue, and the blue ones are kind of what is showing on the screen. And we'll get into that in a moment as well, so you can really see the difference as you toggle these options on and off. But these are all of our different view options to say, what do we want to see and what do we not want to see as we are looking at our software. All right, so on the right-hand side, we talked a little bit about our dockers. Again, this is where your dockers will live. So let's look over on the left-hand side of the screen. These are our toolboxes. The software is going to open up into the Digitize Toolbox. But as I close that by clicking on where it says Digitize, I can see that in DesignerPlus, I have 11 different toolboxes. So this software is much more than just digitizing. Each of these toolboxes is going to be kind of the fun specific functions. And if you click on any one of them, so let's click on edit, it's going to drop down all the different edit options that I have in the software. You'll see I also now have a scroll bar. And so I can grab that scroll bar and move it down, or I can use my mouse wheel to scroll up and down to kind of see all the different options. And again, these are all grayed out currently because we don't have any design on the screen, but they will come in handy as we've got designs up that we want to edit. I'm going to close the edit toolbox and just show you, so you've got your auto digitize toolbox if you want to quickly turn artwork or a picture into stitches. You click on auto digitize, you've got quite a few different options in there, different tools for that. I'm going to close that back up. You've got your digitize toolbox, which is what people think about with software, where you can really, the sky's the limit. You can create anything you want into stitches. If I click on that, and this is why all of these are not grayed out, because we have a blank canvas here. And so we can create any of these different shapes, different ways of drawing, and get stitches out of those. I close up Digitize. We do have lettering and monogramming broken out as its own toolbox now. So lettering, monogramming, and keyboard design collection, which is a great feature in V9 where we can actually map embroidery designs to our keyboard. We'll talk a little bit about that as we get into different classes. We've got an applique toolbox where you can digitize applique, which is fantastic. You can convert your designs into applique, digitize applique, and do different options there. Close up that. We have cut work and stump work, so you can actually digitize cut work designs, which are very cool designs to use your cut work tool on your Bernina machine. And stump work designs, where it's actually kind of a 3D design of stitching over wire. That's also a very neat sort of specialty technique as well. Mirror merge is going to be a very fun way to get quick and cool results. If you've got a design on your screen, you can just kind of turn it into wreaths, turn it into different things using these mirror merge tools. They're very fun to play with to kind of see what effects you can get. That is a fun toolbox to play in. We have a layout toolbox, which is going to be very handy if you are trying to design napkins or a t-shirt or different things where you want your embroidery design to lay in a specific space on your final project. You can use the software to help you get perfect placement and to really plan out exactly what that final project is going to look like when you stitch it out. We have our arrange toolbox. Now, arrange is going to be very handy when it comes to aligning things left and right, up and down, sort of how to get your designs to all be exactly where you want them. Arrange is going to be a very helpful toolbox for that. As I close that up, I'm going to click on multi-hooping. And this toolbox, if you are going to do a large design where you're going to need to hoop it multiple times and have consistent results where things are starting and stopping in a seamless manner, so you can actually stitch out a design much larger than your embroidery area by using multiple hoopings. So it's going to be a more advanced technique that we may get to in later classes. And last, we have our applications toolbox. So these are going to actually be links into our cross-stitch program and our quilter program for designing cross-stitch designs and designing quilt layouts. And both of those are going to be very fun additional features you have in DesignerPlus that you can play with as well. All right, so those are all of our tool boxes. Down at the bottom, then we're just kind of continuing to go down around the screen. Down at the bottom, we have our stitches. So this is our stitch toolbar where we can adjust what type of outline stitch. And again, if you hover your mouse over any one of these icons, it's going to tell you exactly what that is. So this would be your pattern run outline, where you can create ornamental cross stitch borders. Very fun, different options. You've got lots of different options for outline stitches. So I move over to the right. I also have lots of different options for my fill stitches. Again, if I hover over them, it's going to tell me what it is, give me a little description. Say the best way is just to play. So we'll get into a little bit of that as we go into classes. And on the right-hand side of our stitches, we have our different effects. So these effects are very fun as well, like a wave fill, elastic fancy fill, globe effect. These can be really cool ways to enhance your designs and get very neat effects. Next, we have our color palette. So as I'm going along my bottom, the bottom of my screen, you can see the default colors are Bernina colors. So it's a Bernina color palette. They don't correspond to specific threads. You have the ability to add a thread chart yourself into your software, whether that's a specific brand of thread that you want to be able to purchase, or you can even load your own library of threads. So say you have some from brand A and some from brand B, you can actually add your own thread chart and then assign these colors to different threads. So that's a very nice, nice feature of the software. You can hide colors that are not used in your current design. If you say this is just too many colors along the bottom, you can hide unused colors. You can discard those unused colors from your palette. We can also go into different color cycle options in the bottom right. So as we have designs on the screen, it might be handy just to have the software kind of cycle through some colors for us so we can audition different options, or go into the color wheel where we can really get specific about what colors we want to see in our design. And then we have our threads and our thread colors, and that's where we will go to actually assign threads to the colors in our palettes. The very last thing that we'll see at the bottom is our status bar. So this is going to give us, whoops, and sometimes if you go too far down, you'll get your Windows toolbar. But at the very bottom of the screen there, you'll see it says W00, H00. It's because we're right in the center of our hoop. So it's going to give us some coordinate information. It's going to tell us we've got an empty design currently. It's going to just give us different information about what we have on our screen. It's even going to give us instructions sometimes. So it's always a good idea to take a look down there and see if it gives us a hint as to what to do next when we have different tools selected. Okay, so that's an overview of our screen. I'm going to go ahead and share with you a couple of tips about getting started in the software. Oops. All right, so a couple of tips before we kind of dive into a little bit more looking at specific designs and what happens when a design is up on our screen. I do want to point out our options option. So this is our hammer and wrench. And if you click on your hammer and wrench, we can go into our general tab. And so if you are on a different tab, just make sure you click on general. And we're going to go ahead down into toolbars and click show tool names. So when I put a check mark in the show tool names box and I go down and hit the OK, it's going to convert my toolbars up at the top of my screen into much larger icons that have the names underneath. So this is very handy as we are getting started in software. Now you can just see at a glance what your different options are. The one thing to note is that because we have much bigger icons now, we can't actually see them all. And so where you see this sort of double-headed arrow with another arrow below it, that's going to be your toolbar options. And so anywhere you see these arrows, if you click, it's going to open up all of the options that are currently hidden because there's not room on your screen. You might even get this double arrow if you don't have tool names on, depending on the resolution of your screen and how the software fits on your own screen. So if you are missing any options, just always click on this, these arrows. We've also got them over on this side next to the home button because we have more options than just home. We have our artwork canvas, embroidery canvas, and our embroidery library, for example. So I'm going to click on the arrow again to close what I just opened. And then down in the second row, if I go over to the right-hand side, I have those arrows again. And so on the second row, when I click on those arrows, this opens up all of the kind of second row options. So these are from our transform toolbar and our view toolbar. Up in the top, when I click on those arrows, it's going to bring up my general toolbar options. So just something to keep in mind. I think that it's worth having the tool names on as you're getting to know where things are. But if you are looking for something or your toolbars look different from your instructors, it could just be that your options are hidden behind these arrows. I'm going to click on that again to close it. All right, so let's go ahead and insert embroidery. Just to talk a bit about the difference between opening and inserting. So insert embroidery, this icon here, this is how I'm usually going to bring embroidery designs into my software. If I open an embroidery file by using the open button instead, I'm actually opening the original design and I am running the risk of editing it and saving over that design that I purchased or that came with the software or whatever it is. So I want to usually insert embroidery because that's going to save me the risk of accidentally saving over an original design. I can insert embroidery into a new design and then make my changes there. So when I click on Insert Embroidery, it's going to bring me up into Windows Explorer on my Windows machine. And so everyone is going to get built-in designs with their DesignerPlus software. And the way to find it, so we're just going to go back into libraries. I'm going to open this up a little bit. So on your left-hand side of your screen, if you use your scroll bar to scroll down, if you have a libraries option where it says libraries and you have embroidery underneath that, and you click on embroidery, this is going to be where we want to go. If you do not see libraries, you want to go down into this white space below where it says network and right click on your mouse. So do a right mouse click and make sure that show libraries is checked. So if it's not checked, my libraries disappear. Again, I'm going to right click below network and click on show libraries. And then my libraries show up. I can click on embroidery, and then I can come into my main navigation window and go into Bernina 9 embroidery with a double click. We're going to go ahead into the alphabets and monograms folder. So I'm going to double click on that. And I'm going to use my mouse wheel to scroll down to CK982. And with a single click, it's going to show up a preview of that design. It's going to give me some information about that design. And I can go ahead and open it onto my screen, and it puts it right into my hoop. Now this is where the number 0 is going to come in handy. So when I touch the number 0 on my keyboard, it zooms to fit. And so it brings that design to kind of fill the whole screen as big as it can get. Now this is where we can do a little bit of practice with selecting and deselecting. So you can see right now my design is pink and it doesn't look like actual stitches. So in our zoom toolbar, our view toolbar, this is where I can toggle all my different view options. So right now we have artistic view is not blue, so artistic view is turned off. That means I'm in design view. And design view is very helpful when I am designing in the software. I can toggle easily into artistic by clicking where it says artistic, and now it shows actual thread and stitches, kind of a little more realistic view of what it's going to look like. But this is going to be a little bit tricky to do reshaping and designing specifically in. So I like to use the keyboard shortcut, the letter T, on the letter T on my keyboard. And again, if I hover over artistic, it's going to show in parentheses the letter T. So that's how I know that's the keyboard shortcut for that. So I'm going to touch the letter T on my keyboard, and I'm toggling now between design and artistic view. Design view is really handy because whenever something is selected, it turns bright pink. So right now I know that these stars, this whole design is selected. If I take my mouse and I click anywhere off of the design, so I'm going to do a left click off of the design is no longer pink, it is now deselected. I don't have anything selected that I can see. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on the design, a single click, that turns it pink. Now it's selected. Now by default, when we insert embroidery, all of our designs are going to come in grouped. And that way, when you insert an embroidery design, it probably has many different elements, like this has many different stars and swirls. But probably we want to move it and do our basic transformations to everything all together. But if we just want to select one object, we need to deselect by clicking off of the object and then hold down the Alt key on your keyboard. So I'm holding the Alt key and I want to select just this top left star. So while holding the Alt key, if I use a left click, that's going to select just one element. So that's a very handy way to select just one object. If you have everything grouped, you can use, again, the Alt key and click, and that's going to give you just one object. Now, when we select, you can see that you have black boxes around that, that object. That's going to give you your basic transform options of basically resizing. And so when I hover over one of those black boxes, I get a double-headed arrow. You can see my double-headed arrow is diagonal here. If I move to the middle bottom, the double-headed arrow is up and down. And so if I go to the diagonal double-headed arrow and I click and drag, that is going to resize that element proportionally. So it's going to keep it the same ratio, top, up and down, left and right, but it's going to resize it. I'm going to go up to my undo button, which again is one of my best friends in the software, or a very handy keyboard shortcut, Control Z. So if I click undo or hit Control Z, it's going to undo what I just did. Now, if you have black boxes around your design and you click one more time right in the center, now you're going to have clear boxes. And these are going to be my rotation and my skew options. And so I can click and drag and I can rotate that element of the design however I'd like. And it kind of shows you a preview until you let go and then it lands wherever you rotated it. You know what, let's go ahead and zoom in. I'm going to use the mouse wheel. That's one of my favorite ways to zoom. I'm going to use the mouse wheel to sort of scroll in. So if you scroll your mouse wheel up, that will help zoom. And that way you can see a little bit more clearly that there's also these small diamonds at the bottom right, top and left of the design. These are my skew options. So if I click and drag, you can see a preview of that design element skewing. If I let go, well, now I have a very skewed star. Well, it looks a little bit funny because it's in, well, first of all, we made it a funny shape, but also it's in design view. So I'm going to hit the letter T and toggle back to artistic view. And I'm going to hit the number 0 on my keyboard. And that's going to zoom out so I can sort of audition. Do I like that star? So in this way, we can do a little bit of editing. We can zoom in and out. We can select just one element on our screen, and we can undo and undo to get back to where we were. All right, so we're going to look a little bit more at different view options. So again, now we're in artistic view. This is going to be sort of the more realistic view. I'm going to hit the letter T and toggle back to design view so that I can see what I have selected and I can see a little more clearly what's going to be helpful as I'm editing in the software. We're just going to go through the view toolbar and kind of see what happens. So dim is going to be if we have an artwork backdrop that you are digitizing from, you can dim that background so it's not as distracting as you're putting stitches on top of it. The next option is going to be stitches. And so right now we have our stitches showing. If I click on stitches, well, it took the stitches away. Stitches can be a little bit distracting if all you're looking at is the shape of your design. Again, it's important to be able to see all these different layers as you're editing designs in software. And so you have that option of turning on stitches or turning off stitches. So I'm going to turn it back on, and now we see our stitches again. Next, we have outlines. I'm going to turn that off, and you can see there's no longer an outline around these shapes. So those outlines are not actually getting stitched. They're just showing the outline of the object, which can be very helpful as we're designing and kind of seeing how the designs are looking on our screen, but they're not actually getting stitched. So if you want to see only the stitches, it can be helpful to turn off outlines just in order to see a little bit better where things are going to be. I'm going to turn on artistic view again, and the same thing applies. So the outlines are not showing. If I turn off stitches, well, now nothing is showing. So there is still a design there, but just look up at your view toolbar and say, do I want to see my stitches? Do I want to see my outlines? And do I want to see in artistic view and see my realistic representation, or do I want to turn that off and see my design view where I can play a little bit more cleanly? Next, I'm going to zoom in on this star here by using my scroll wheel. And I'm going to turn on points. So now you can see all these little white dots. These are my actual needle penetrations. Not something I need to play with very often, but can be handy if I'm doing something a little more specific with a lot more clarity, but I'm going to go ahead and turn those off. I don't usually need to see my needle points. The last option is going to be connectors. And if I turn off connectors and I hit my number 0 on my keyboard, that's going to zoom back out, zoom to fit. You can see all of my jump stitches have gone away. There's no more jump stitches between my objects. That does not mean that they're actually gone. That just means I'm not looking at them. They're not distracting me. They are still there. Your machine does need to take jump stitches as it travels around designs, but it's nice to kind of see a clean version of what it will look like after you cut your jump stitches. So I'm going to turn back on connectors, and then I can see kind of the path that the machine is going to take as it stitches out this design. All right, the next few options are going to be turning on and off sort of background artwork. So there's multiple kinds of artwork. There's bitmap and there's vector. Those differences are gonna, they're you know, they're just different types of artwork depending on how involved in the software you want to get. But if we had artwork background, we could turn that off if we didn't want to see it. We could turn off the stump work as well, but we don't have any of those elements up on our screen right now. And so there's nothing showing either way. Similarly, we can turn on and off applique fabric if we're digitizing applique. And we can turn on and off our embroidery hoop. So let me go ahead and zoom out to a 1-to-1 ratio. So you can see I do have a hoop on the left and right sides of my screen. I think this is the maxi or the jumbo hoop. If I click on where it says show hoop, well, now the hoop is gone. It's nice to design without the hoop a lot of the time. It's a little distracting, but I always like to turn it back on at the end, kind of make sure that I'm in the right size range to be able to stitch out what I'm doing. We can also turn on and off our template, which is our hoop template, or we can turn on and off a grid, which is going to show us, just how to kind of keep things aligned, all that good stuff. Turn that on and off as well. We do have a little drop down arrow here for our toolbar options. So a couple other things. We do have show rulers option. So that ruler is going to be just up at the top. I'm going to turn it on one more time so you can see this top of our screen and the left side of our screen. We do have rulers. They don't take up a lot of room. I usually leave them on. If I go back over to my drop down, I can also turn on and off my work area, a quilt block, and I can get into Stitch Player, which is really nice to sort of stitch out and see how the machine will move through the design before sending it to my machine. If I click on Player, it's actually going to start simulating a stitch out, and I can adjust my speed. I can move forward and backward color, but I can really just see the path that the machine is going to take through my embroidery design. If I hit Escape, nothing happens. If I hit Stop, it's going to stop Stitch Player and get me back into my design view. Okay, so that is that's most of our view options. The one other thing that I want to go through today with you is going to be, well, two other things. I guess let's say that we are ready to send this design to our machine. Let's say that we've done all of our editing and we are really ready to save this file so that we can return to it later in software, but also to send it to our machine. So kind of best practice is always going to be to save as an art file first. ART, that's going to be the native software format. And if you ever want to edit your design again, it's going to get the best results by editing that original art file, as opposed to a machine embroidery file, which is for the machine to read for stitch out. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and this is where I'm going to make sure that it's saving as type Art 90. And you want to make sure that you are saving designs in consistent places. That way, you know where they are, you can find them again, that kind of thing. But I'm going to go ahead and save my design into this folder, my Designs folder, under my embroidery as an Art 90 file. So I'm going to save that. And then I can go ahead and send it to my machine. So if I have a Wi-Fi device, I can just click on send to Bernina Wi-Fi device and it's going to show up on my machine. It is so cool, so quick. They do come with the DesignerPlus software. So just we'll have those, you know, up and configured. First, you do it in your computer and you link it to your Wi-Fi and then you plug it into your machine and you should be good to go. So you can just click on send to Bernina Wi-Fi device and that's going to show it up on your machine. Or you can click on this right button and that's going to pop up different options. Usually I'm going to write EXP to a thumb drive. So say that I've got a USB stick plugged into my computer. If I just click on EXP, that's going to export the EXP file, which is my machine stitching file, onto that USB stick. I can eject it and take that over to my machine as well. Now, if you have a different brand of machine, I'm going to close out of this. Instead of clicking on write, you will go over to file and you're actually going to export machine file. And when I click on export machine file, then I have the option of using the drop-down menu to select whatever machine file I need for my brand of machine and save that to my USB stick instead. The last thing that I want to share with you today is about our embroidery library. So I'm going to go over to my home area and click on my drop-down menu in order to get to Embroidery Library. And when I click on Embroidery Library, that is going to bring up the design management system. And so you can see how easy it is to see all of your different embroidery files. I have a scroll bar over on the right, so I can use my mouse wheel just to scroll down and get these previews of all my different files. This is everything within my embroidery library. I can also drill down. So if I click on public embroidery, this is only the files in public embroidery. If I click on this little arrow to the left of public embroidery, I can also open up my Bernina 9 embroidery. And I'm going to hover my mouse over this little wall here until I get the double-headed arrow. I'm going to click and drag so we can see a little bit better what my different folders are. And so let's click on floral and garden. And this is going to be all the designs within floral and garden. So in that way, you can kind of navigate easily. You can see everything you have just by going out into public embroidery. That's going to be everything in every folder. Or you can click on an individual folder and just see what's in there. This is going to just be a quick and easy way to see your designs. And then we can very easily double click on a design. And that's going to open that in my embroidery software. Now, as I said before, it's usually best to insert rather than open. But it is going to be helpful when I'm in Embroidery Library just to be able to see kind of what is going on and what all my different files are. So that is our overview today of our Bernina V9 DesignerPlus software. I do hope that it's been helpful. I'm going to go back into my embroidery canvas. You can see this cute little cat. And let's toggle her into artistic view. I hit the letter T on my keyboard just to see she's a lot cuter in stitches. So again, hope this was helpful and would love to see you guys in class sometime soon.